yet, but it'll certainly be something. Wherever Aussie Cossack goes, he always makes a scene. And this is not just Aussie Cossack. This will be Aussie Cossack and Avi Yemeni. And I don't know about you guys, but these are two social media forces, so this is going to be something else. The man himself. Hello, Cossack. How you going? What brings you here? Avi Yemeni.
I can't believe I'm meeting you.
Everybody does. Donald Trump, see everyone see.
Yeah, Donald Trump is indeed here.
Love this guy, love your channel, love everything. The future Prime Minister, look at this guy.
Nice to meet you, brother.
Really, really nice to meet you, Mr. Cossack. Future Prime Minister, ladies and gentlemen.
Give it out.
Oh, I stick up. Look, what an amazing, tremendous man. Love you. You're doing a great service to the country, and you will be remembered forever and a day.
Thank you.
Get some parking and
Are you gonna park and come talk to us?
Mr. President, you got to meet Mr. Cossack. How was it?
Amazing, tremendous man, very nice, very, very smart. We need people like this running our country. If you had people like this running your country, we wouldn't be in this mess at all, and you would have an honest person and an honest country that fights for you and the Australian people.
Mr. President, would you endorse his run for Prime Minister of Australia?
I already have. I've given him $1 million already, and he is very, very happy, and he has my total and full support. And mark my words, Aussie Cossack will win.
Anything else to say, Mr. President?
Good luck, and God bless you and the citizens of this country. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President Donald Trump here to help us all along. Oh wait, I don't need to hold his number plate. He publishes his own number plate. That's fine. So what a chance meeting, huh? That I just happened to run into Avi Yemeni, Aussie Cossack, Victor Tay from Policing Exercising Our Rights, here about half an hour after I was about to leave the last protest, which was the COP26 climate change protest. I was about to go to another one, and Aussie Cossack is trying to find the right parking space here, which is awfully. Think I can cut in here for a second. Victor, if I can cut in while I'm live here, because we just had Cossack arrive. This is Victor Tay of Exercising My Rights.
Yeah. Hey, how you doing? It's good to see you guys.
For those who don't know, what is Exercising My Rights?
Oh, Exercising My Rights, it started 19 months ago. This is at the very beginning of the Sydney pandemic. Or pandemic, I should say. So basically, I was trying to figure out how I could express my opposition to what was going on, but still keeping within the confines of the law. So the idea was, well, if I went out and exercised, so I made it very obvious that I was exercising. I sort of dressed up in an Adidas tracksuit, I had a headband on, but I also held a sign that said, "Save lives, end the lockdowns." And it was outside this very place. We're at Parliament House right now because we're doing a bit of a piece with Rebel News. That me and another lady, so we're here with Renee's just over here with us, we were both arrested that day. Now my fine that day actually got withdrawn because the police actually admitted that we were exercising. Mm-hmm. Renee's is still going to court, and hers is going to go to the Supreme Court with my Homebush one. So I went to Homebush and I was also arrested there. That was in September 2020. And thankfully, Rebel News has come to aid, and also Reignite Democracy Australia has sort of put in to allow us to take this to the Supreme Court. And this is going to be really critical, because if we can win in the Supreme Court, we're going to help get a lot of people off their fines in New South Wales. So the situation is a little bit different to Victoria. So a lot of people think, Victoria had this Supreme Court challenge. the situation is different in New South Wales. So we have another crack at this, and just want to thank you. If you're a Rebel News supporter, thank you so much for getting behind it.
You've got a sticker here for...
From yesterday.
Ladies and gentlemen,
You are an infamous
taller
man.
in real life.
nice to meet you.
So,
Who we live
fancy
streaming
meeting
for?
you here. Discoveries. I'm guessing we haven't... That's not a problem.
Formally met.
No, maybe not. I
Big-
live stream all kinds of protests.
Fantastic.
So, I just finished up one. You missed out on the COP26 protest. So, you've come here. Tell us why you're here today.
Well, the official reason is to meet with a lawyer for the purpose of seeking legal advice, because I am unchipped and unvaccinated, so technically I can't be anywhere. But a court-related reason, for example, there's a very good lawyer called Manny, and he's a very experienced, one of Australia's best. So for the official version, if this goes to a police fact sheet,
Always.
I just met his lovely wife and I'm going to speak to him. I'm in line because he's so famous, you
There
can't
is a
even
queue.
get to him.
There is a queue. Now, you've got a lot of publicity lately, and not all of it's been good. How's that been going?
I think it is good publicity.
Well,
I mean,
some say even bad publicity is good publicity, but there has been bad publicity as well.
what is bad publicity?
It's certainly, if police are charging you, then many would say that's bad publicity. So, if police are charging you with something,
I put it to you this way. Every
Please.
charge that the police have put on me, I think they regret it woefully. And I think that senior command of the New South Wales Police have probably reprimanded the overzealous junior constables in uniform who have dared to attempt to shut down the Aussie Cossack, because it's a boomerang effect. Every traffic offence or questionable fine that they give me for beeping the horn or for having my elbow on the windscreen or something nonsense like that, it actually generates the opposite effect for the New South Wales Police, and public sentiment grows against them because people aren't silly. Australians like fairness, and when they see something that's not fair, when they see police resources being used to silence government critics, used to silence journalists, Aussies step up to the plate. And on my previous arrest, thousands of phone calls were made. Mr. Avi Yemeni.
Привет.
Привет.
Хорошо,
Pleasure
домой.
to meet you.
And
Mali, how are you?
Nice to see you.
you have not been deported.
Haven't been deported. Here for the fight.
Talk to him. I'm going to do the last interview, then I'm just come.
Yeah, I'll take one.
he's a famous man. He's a famous man.
Love you. Ruthie, come here. We all love you, man. Here we go. Oh, yes, I'll hold it up. Ruthie, come here. That's lovely.
They're all going to join. Guantanamo Bay together. Are you leaving now?
I'm leaving.
Hold on, let me get a B-roll.
That's
man.
okay. Don't worry. I can stay. No, because I'm... Lovely. Finally, we get to see the Ataman Mobile, right? I know, I noticed that. But,
they don't
I
want
got
to
a bit
engage.
nervous because Victor's tail prohibits him from
I can't go within
100 meters of the Hyde Park, yeah.
I can't.
Yeah, but obviously...
I can't go within 100 metres of a cop. I've got the best bail conditions in Australia. First they want to get me, now they want to keep me away from themselves. They're a bit bipolar. FPOs, PSOs.
It's outrageous.
Now I can't go within. Even people who actually physically attack police don't get bail conditions like this.
How come you're not challenging the FPO?
I am. I issued a...
Administratively? Or
Yeah, in the tribunal. Yeah.
You're taking it to
Oh yeah. We managed to do it within 28 days. So it's going to be an interesting situation.
There is no reasonable basis for it.
Yeah, I agree. There you
What,
go.
an ancient sword, or what's the basis?
A sword from 1911.
It's outrageous.
Of course. I mean, if anyone needs an FPO, it's David Elliott, Police Minister. Using submachine guns in Western Sydney. What kind of example is that? I mean, it's one rule for him, another rule for everyone else. But
crazy.
just as we have been seeing that these kind of court actions are being used to silence government critics, to silence opposition. Correct. Because the only opposition now in Australia are the independent journalists and the people. Labor is not an opposition party.
No.
Liberal are basically unopposed, unchallenged, and the two parties have joined forces
Singing from the same hymn book.
in a duopoly against the people.
Absolutely.
The police retreated, surrendered.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, went to the people. The police are running away.
There's you, there's Avi, there's Victor. They're not going to come
I
here.
think the police saw this, a lawyer, Aussie Cossack, Avi Yemeni, and they just said, nah, too hard basket. I'm knocking off early.
You know what Avi said when they rolled up? He said, "We don't need you, Manny. I'm here. It's okay. I'll take care of it." Well, you'll be pleased to know that we filed a summons in the Supreme Court
Yes.
for Victor, and we will be doing it for The basis of the argument is that people ought to be allowed to leave their home to exercise their implied freedom of political communication.
Yes.
We're seeking a declaration from the Supreme Court that protesting is a reasonable excuse, even under public health laws.
That's good.
And furthermore, that the powers that the police have been exercising to move people on from protests,
Yes.
which they can't do under LEPRA.
Yes. They can't, yeah?
No, if it's a genuine protest, they can't move you on.
Okay.
So the question then becomes, under a Public Health Act where gathering is limited,
Yeah.
can they still move you on if it's a genuine protest?
This is excellent legal advice that I'm receiving on camera. This is evidence. I get charged for being here. But you can't meet with a lawyer. You can meet for court-related purposes.
Of course, yes. I called you here for a conference. Yes. There you go. Her affidavit has a lot of weight.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Now, well,
good.
hopefully that can become a precedent case.
Yes,
Look,
that's right.
Spain, United Kingdom, all of these
right.
fines and matters are being thrown out.
Correct.
Hopefully Australia will follow suit.
Eventually.
Eventually, yeah.
Well, thank you for coming before 5:30. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Manny, I've seen more than one move on order happen at the protests that I've covered, so
Correct.
I cover all.
See, under LEPRA, they can't move you on if it's a genuine protest.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's
I didn't know
actually an exemption. It's an exclusion of the power.
I didn't know that.
So if it's a genuine protest or a gathering for the purpose of protest, they can't move you on.
What if the protest is more than what the health advice says?
That's what we're arguing in the Supreme Court. We're arguing that the common law freedom of implied communication, which is a constitutional right, trumps the public health orders because there is no express intent by Parliament to abrogate or burden the freedom to protest when they drafted the Public Health Act.
Okay, this sounds a lot better than Nathan Buckley's.
If you read the second reading speeches of the parliamentarians when they were drafting the Public Health Act in 2010, they say expressly, we must safeguard against the liberties of people to be able to gather for the purposes of protest. Why? Because it's an implied constitutional right. So the argument is the police are acting ultra vires because they're moving people on when there is a genuine protest in place. And simultaneously, people ought to be able to leave their home as a reasonable excuse for the purpose of protesting. Now, you can protest and socially distance. I mean, you and I could be leaving the house to go grocery shopping, and we could be shoulder to shoulder at the Woolworths checkout.
Isn't the spirit of the in terms of the law? I'm not, but what I can say is many people would say that the spirit of the law trumps the specifics, and doesn't it matter? The spirit of the law was to help keep people at home.
Yes.
And stop them from spreading COVID, even if that means some limitation of liberties.
It's true, and of course the High Court is currently divided in terms of the bench, in terms of whether or not the implied freedom of political communication even exists. So the bench is divided, and rightfully so. Over time, there's been an evolution, if you like, in the judiciary with respect to that right. And look, I agree with you. However, there is a point in time where people ought to be able to step out for the purpose of vocalizing their dissent or protest. Now, that could very well be an industrial-related matter.
Rather than the spirit of protest and the importance of freedom of speech, or particularly important, the implied rights we discovered with Andrew Cooper's High Court case, which I think was in this very building as well. We discovered that while we do have the right to leave the country, those rights are not unlimited. The same thing when it comes to freedom of speech. We have the right to, not the freedom of speech, but the right to communicate, the right of communication. But there are limits on those implied rights, as you say. Haven't we reached one of those limits in the middle of the thousands of cases and facing a pandemic, as Brad Hazard has said? Isn't that a reasonable or limit to face?
That's certainly going to be the main argument that we'll probably get from the state of New South Wales. But what we're arguing is that there ought to be a declaration, or at least some implied freedom.
Can we walk and talk?
Yeah. There ought to be a declaration from the court as to the boundaries of the public health orders. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the boundaries ought to be the ability of people to be able to leave their home for the purpose of expressing their opinion, politically at least. Mm-hmm. Now, some may argue that that is what the public health orders are intending to abrogate.
Yes.
And I can accept that. However, there is a point in time where the infringements on liberties, the infringement on rights may be disproportionate to the risk, potentially. Now, if you have mitigating factors in place, let's say you have a COVID safe plan in place, you have social distancing implemented, you have marshals who attend these protests, you take all risk mitigation factors. In those cases, you ought to be able to conduct the protests, conduct the rallies in a mitigated fashion.
What if the protest is not complying with COVID check-ins, with all of the COVID health and safety guidelines? As a protest follower, I would say having a protest which has every person, even 50% of the people COVID check-in, is implausible. You cannot run to the current health guidelines, COVID check-in safe, vaccine passported, 100% mask mandated.
Sure.
It is impossible to run a
The
check-in.
good news is that there has not been a single case of transmission in any protests or rallies in Australia. Okay? We know for a fact that the Black Lives Matter protests, for example, that occurred, I think it was February or March of 2020, was about 20,000 strong or 19,000 strong. There was not a single case of transmission. The same with the Sydney protests, the illegal protests that were held in front of Town Hall. Not a single case of transmission. Now, that could very well be because people aren't getting tested.
It could be. Maybe it was
Right?
Right.
It very well could be. Of course, the argument isn't about particularly the science. Although, of course, we can't escape the science. If we were going to go down the path of the science, we would have to challenge the validity of the polymer chain reaction test, the PCR test.
This is a legal
As a diagnostic tool.
guideline.
Yeah, that's right. That's not the point. The point is to determine whether or not legally we still have the ability to express our opinion against government policy as a group, as a society, as a class of persons who are affected in an outdoor setting or in any other setting when there are limitations on movement or gatherings.
And having followed these protests, the answer to the question already demonstrated, not through law or anything with pen, but through demonstration, is that has been suspended. It was temporarily suspended. And one of the views by a group of people, certainly from Eastern Sydney, will be that was a small price to pay for a 3-month hiatus, which might become a little bit longer, but just a short time for us to get back to normal once we hit 98% vaccination. And isn't suspending that freedom of communication a small price to pay? Is going to be the extra legal discussion?
That's a matter for policy.
Yes.
And it's a matter for the scientific opinion. I personally can't say yes or no to that. I can appreciate the community's concerns. Of course, I share those concerns. Hopefully the issue with, of course, the vaccination rates are that we know that at the moment, more than 85% of people in intensive care have been double vaccinated. So whether or not the vaccines are actually assisting,
medical, and the medical science isn't.
I can't. It's not settled.
It's more.
It's not settled.
It's more the crossover. If I'm going to change gears a little bit to the decision. If you need to walk this way, we can.
I've just got to probably cut it short, but anyway, go on.
Is that I participate in a different court of law, which is one of public opinion and media decision makers,
Yes.
where those with the most number of likes is rather like your bench is a bench of 7.
Yeah.
Within social media, the bench is measured in the millions, and each person with a like then casts their vote and decides who or what is deciding there.
Yes.
But Manny, let me leave you here because
I'll tell you just one last thing.
Please.
There are some values and there are some democratic, I hesitate to use the word rights, because
Rights is a powerful word.
Yeah, that word gets thrown around quite a lot.
What about
unfortunately.
responsibilities?
Responsibilities. There are certain democratic responsibilities or boundaries that we must protect, not for us, but for future generations. Why do we have to protect it? We have to protect it because it keeps the political, the legal, and the economical systems honest, in balance. if the people and their ability to express themselves is abrogated, we say for a limited period of time, but from what I can see in Victoria, for example, the current legislation before the upper house, that's taking it beyond a limited period of time. It's making the powers to decree a little bit more permanent. In those circumstances, we must be able to preserve the ability to protest, the ability to step out and protest, the ability to express ourselves. Now, I can appreciate the counter-argument.
The counter-argument I've seen from having attended pro-lockdown protests
Yes.
is that nothing is more important than safety. Speaking about the rule of law or honesty or justice, all of these things are secondary to safety, because without safety...
But the problem is this, mate. Statistically speaking, if you're under 85 with no comorbidities, you have a 99.994% chance of survival.
And for many people,
Right.
that is a number two. That is,
Right.
even then,
Now,
it's too
life,
high.
you were born in a world where safety is not guaranteed. You could fall down a set of stairs. You could, I know.
You
understand. So safety is not paramount and not everlasting. However, the freedom to protest, the freedom to air your democratic values, the freedom to speak, those things. Actually, let me say something,
Please.
and I probably said too much.
Well, take a moment and decide what you want to say, but please tell me.
If people are able to voice their opinions publicly, it will actually benefit the political system, because the political class and the scientific class can take into account, when they're determining their orders or their rules or their regulations, the opinion of the electorate. That can actually craft a better set of policies, in my humble opinion, and I'm just a lowly old lawyer, I wouldn't know the difference about that, but it can assist, in my opinion, if it's worth anything, craft a better policy. If we limit and abrogate and burden those rights, we are left with policy that is undercooked, for lack of a better word. It is determined by a political class instead of a larger pool of fellow Australians. And I think a democracy flourishes in an environment of freedom, not in an environment where freedoms are handed up for safety.
There's a lot of contravening views to this. A lot of people turn to China and look at their one-party, top-down authoritarian structure and say that for COVID that worked really well. Welding people in their homes, as horrifying as that is to the heart, in the head, worked to stop the spread of
I
COVID.
can't express an opinion on that, because
Of course.
it comes down to the science, right? How,
Do you want Manny?
No, we don't like money.
You don't want you don't like turned off. All right, cool. So I've got you for a little bit
Thank
longer.
you, man. No, yeah, all right.
Oh, no, you've got to go.
No, it's
that's
okay,
good.
it's okay.
Final thoughts.
Final thoughts. Okay. You tell
Your
me.
final thoughts.
Oh, so you mentioned China.
Yes. A success story over the past 20 years, a billion people out of poverty.
Look, I have
COVID.
all respect for the Chinese people, and I'm not going to make any negative comments about the Chinese people. I have a great deal of respect for them. It's an ancient culture, well older than the Communist Party. It's a culture that dates back some 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 years. And it's a culture that I know quite well and I respect.
It's just the authoritarian part that isn't an authoritarian, direct to the point, cut the noise of democracy out and the chaos and the lobbying and the politicking and all of the corruption that sometimes comes with that, cut that out and just have one guy make a decision and say this is the way there's going to be. That will be the other side of it, of what you speak of the sometimes messy democracy is precisely what's being criticised in the name of safety. Looking at the body bags that resulted from a disease, many people turn to that and say that anything, at any cost, this must be stopped, and even at the cost of liberties. And this is where we get to an extra legal, there is no answer, it becomes a political
That's
discussion.
right. And it is a very difficult and novel situation, and we all find ourselves in a very novel situation. And as I said to you earlier, I sympathise with the community and the fear of this disease, and I sympathise with them. Although I sometimes think we've got to have a broader and longer term vision for our country and our people.
And that broader and longer term vision should take into account conservation of values and rights that make us who we are. We're having these debates obviously because we're faced with a very novel situation. But I think some values and rights are worth conserving, even in time of public health emergency, at least to some degree.
Manny, thank you very much. I could chew up all of your time. Chris Discoveries is the channel I'm streaming to.
Oh, really?
So
Okay, cool, man.
all the best with your
Thank
pursuit.
you.
I do
I
all
might
kinds
add you
of-
onto my.
You should. I live stream all kinds of protests. You'll find me on Facebook first
So
and
what
foremost.
do I look for in YouTube?
Chris Discoveries, but you'll find most of this one on
Chris
Facebook because
Chris Discoveries like that.
exactly right. For those who aren't aware and who are just coming
is that
back
you?
into this,
Oh,
that
I'm
is me.
subscribed to.
You're already
to
subscribed. There you go. Good choice. Manny is already subscribed to me. Oh, you're not on Facebook.
No,
that's
I
fine.
don't have any social media.
Good
Unfortunately.
move. Good move. But you're here running a case.
Yes.
Do you want to shout out your firm? I don't know if that's of any use. No, leave it that.
Look, the firm is called Legal Bit.
Legal bit.
Legal Bit,
Legal bit.
as in we look after the legal bit. But
A punny man after my own heart. Very good. Very good. Legal bit. Okay. And you do probate.
we do a lot of criminal law matters
Criminal law,
and civil matters,
civil matters.
administrative law, and at the moment we are obviously have filed a summons in the Supreme Court, as I mentioned earlier. So that's what we're here interviewing, and there are other matters.
So if someone is facing a fine of
Fines,
They should come-
criminal proceedings. Yep, they can contact us.
legalbit.com.au.
That's correct.
There you go.
Thank you, my friend.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much.
See you later.
Take care.
I'm going to come back to that pair over there because Avi is getting an interview with whoever it is over here, and I'm going to go and have another look at. Look at this pair. Look at this pair. Look at this pair. Look at this pair. It's amazing.
Collaboration of Trump and Cossack.
Future Prime Minister, ladies and gentlemen, future Prime Minister.
How are you going?
Very good. Everyone, join this channel and subscribe.
Thank you, sir.
Absolutely, Chrissy, tremendous, most honest reporter in the country. You've got to join this guy. Tremendous, amazing work.
Thank you, Mr. President. Would you believe it's not the first time I've met Mr. President? We've met at a protest before.
Very good friends. Very good friends.
Oh, I'm getting an endorsement from the president. Jeez, I can't do much better than that. I was in the middle of giving you a bit of a challenge on your quiz, which is going relatively well.
Yeah, we continue.
Can we continue?
Why not? We got in the sun.
I'd let you deal with this lovely gentleman.
Thank you, Mr. President.
We got in the sun. Everyone.
Yeah,
There's
sure.
Not much sun left in Sydney.
I was in the middle of
Running out of sun.
raising some prior. Where was I? In the middle of discussing bad publicity versus good publicity, and that you've had a lot of what many would say bad publicity over the last little while, and looking to ABC's coverage of you, which alleges your links to some Russian links. A lot of people are left wondering, not sure what to make of who you are, what you represent, and what.
Well, what's the question, as Gaddafi would say? Remember Gaddafi? He said, "What is the question?"
The question is, many people are not sure what to make of you. What do you represent?
I think the question
Why
is-
do you do what you do?
What to make of the ABC? Why do ABC?
No. Why do you do what you do?
Well, if you refer to the ABC to the Four Corners episode, Putin's Patriots, the question is, why do the ABC attempt character assassinations against people who they perceive as being right-wing and so forth? I mean, firstly, any allegations that I'm right-wing are outrageous. It's not true. We identify ourselves as Russians and Australians, Russian heritage. We celebrate the 9th of May, victory over Nazi Germany. Our country fought and lost 28 million lives. We defeated the Germans. If it wasn't for the Soviets, the world would be speaking German.
Russian blood,
My
American
wife's
steel.
great-grandfathers on both sides were wounded in battle, and both of them lost their legs.
But now that we're in Australia, why do you do what you do with your YouTube channel? What's the message you're trying to send with your channel? Why do you do it?
Well, we go back to 3 months ago when the YouTube channel Aussie Cossack took off. Now, it's a result of police intimidation. It's a result of filming the police, FTP. the police started grabbing guns and saying, "What are you doing in the city?" You know, I'm a construction worker, I own a labour hire company. And since then, the outrageous police behaviour has been captured by me, and it's resulted in a huge public sentiment against the police. So I encourage everybody, film the police, especially live stream, because when you're live streaming, they can't grab your phone and delete it or something like that, or pull the memory card out. So police, they actually fear people with cameras. If you're anything to do with the police and you're in a public place, if you're in your own home, you're allowed to stick your camera in their face and film them. And you watch their behaviour change. All of a sudden, they start worrying about what they're going to say, and they back up, and they call in back up, and they call their commanders, what do we do? And that's really good, because the police are always filming you.
Is there a different way to interact with the police that doesn't get quite the strong response that you seem to get? Or are you satisfied with the response that you're getting? Is there a way to just, for example, rather than holding the camera in their face, just taking a step back and just listening? Is there a better way to do what you want to do without getting the reaction you're getting?
Are you trying to allege that my behaviour with police isn't civil, or?
That's what the police allege. That's what the police allege. That.
Well, you name one video, and there's probably 60 of them where I've sworn at police, where I've, antagonised them, or I've been physically violent, or I've called upon violence. That's the success of the Aussie Cossack channel. You use diplomacy, and you be polite, humour, and you disarm the police. The police, see, where a lot of people go wrong, they stand in front of the police and they start dropping the F word and the C word, and they get excited.
That's true, they do.
And then what do the police do? They say, harassment, intimidation, they grab you, resisting arrest, see you later. But the Aussie Cossack never allows the police to get the satisfaction of throwing me out of character. And that's what drives them crazy. They've come at me at all directions, mate. They're searching my house, going through my wife's underwear drawer, and I'm laughing, filming them, and I've made it into a comedy show, which gets, hundreds of thousands of views from all over the world. And the police, in this instance, in every instance with the Aussie Cossack, are actually shooting themselves in the foot. The police spend millions of dollars trying to improve their public image, public relations, but every interaction with the Aussie Cossack ends in a PR disaster. That's why they've stopped going after me.
Without a doubt, police are watching this stream as every one of your other videos right now, always. And if we could say something to those police, or any time that we could right now, isn't there a way to try and find something where you can continue to do what you do and hold police accountable without facing the raids at home and all of the trouble? Isn't there a way that this can somehow simmer down?
Sorry, I love it. Bring it on. Welcome. All the police are welcome to stop me. And you know what? They don't want to stop me now. They see the Aussie Cossack. They do a U-turn. They want nothing to do with me. So basically, we've taught them a lesson. The people win. It's a win to the people. It's a behaviour. The behaviour of the police has changed when they've realised. The first time I started filming the cops, I said to the police officer, I said, 17,000 people are watching this. She laughed at me. 10 minutes later, I said 64,000 people are watching this. She didn't believe me. In the end, that video got millions of views, right? On different platforms and so forth. So I don't regret anything. And it's a lesson for the police. And I implore every citizen to not be intimidated in the face of police harassment. I've been surrounded by 10, by 15, by 18 police over a traffic stop and do a breathalyzer. And it's those intimidation tactics. They try to intimidate me, but in the end, it's a boomerang effect. They end up being embarrassed. You just got to read the comment sections on those videos on the Aussie Cossack channel. You get 99.9% strike rate for likes. People aren't silly. Aussies like fairness. When Aussies see something that's not fair, and they'll call it out. And the police shouldn't be looking for the Cossack. The police should be looking for William Tyrrell. The poor kid's been missing for years. Who's William Tyrrell?
I'll give you a moment on that. I'm going to come back to questions, but just a brief on who that is.
It's a kid who went missing. Missing persons unit. Instead, the police allocate as many resources as possible to the Aussie Cossack. Well, look.
What brought you here at this juncture to meet Avi happens to be here as well. What brought you here today?
Well, the official reason for court purposes, meeting with a solicitor.
Yeah, who's coming down.
And I accidentally met Avi Yemeni and Donald Trump and other political Australian activists who represent the independent free news, like this gentleman over here. How you going?
Very well, thank you, sir.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too, Cameron Shamson.
Cameron Shamson, looking very spruced up in a nice suit.
Well, I have to look the part, especially for a movie making arguments in this building very soon. So
Well, there you go. Another political dissident who's been attacked by the system, by the police.
just a lowly lawyer from Western Sydney. That's all I am.
Well, one of the best lawyers in Western Sydney, I'm told.
Well, that would be. You're very kind. I think that's a very nice.
You'll see the phone
assessment.
number in the description below.
There you go.
What's the website?
Legalbit.com.au.
Legal bit.
You do the
Sorry.
you do the legal bit.
Yeah, I do the legal bit. That's usually Manny's line. I don't usually say that.
Oh, I just got it from Manny, so I'm trying to give you.
I do. Yeah, no, thank you. He does. Yeah, he does that.
And you do administrative law. You do criminal law.
Administrative, we do criminal. Manny does some family law. We do all sorts of civil litigation. Basically, a bit of everything. Yeah.
And you're getting some.
I haven't met the Cossack, but I'm surprised because you've had so many charges. I was surprised I haven't heard from you already.
Oh, they're all minor charges, nothing to worry about.
I'm interviewing them, and then you're.
There you go.
Well, there you go. There's plenty of good lawyers out there, plenty of barristers and solicitors that are outraged at what's happening in Australia.
That's right.
And it's good to see that they're standing up. You know, a lot of the politicians are actually ex-lawyers themselves, so they know the law, but they're gutless.
It's the most common profession for politicians,
right.
especially in the US. It's overwhelming. That's right.
Overwhelmingly, yes. And it hasn't made the legal system any better, or the political system any better, having a bunch of lawyers as politicians. The truth is that politics is meant to be it's not meant to be a profession. Politics is meant to be
Thank you, Katitsa.
a civic duty, essentially.
A few comments there.
Beautiful.
Yes,
Politics is meant to be a civic duty. You're meant to elect community members that are upstanding and that are excellent. Don't elect career politicians. Don't elect people that are just because they're lawyers, they're good politicians. People should be elected based upon their values, not based upon their previous professional background. It doesn't make the legal system any better. We've had 100 years of lawyers basically running the country. It hasn't made the place much better, in my opinion, at least. If you want good values in politics, elect people that have the values that reflect what the community wants and what the community needs. Doesn't matter whether they're plumbers, doesn't matter whether they're firemen, doesn't matter whether they're ex-police officers, doesn't matter whether they're, well, future prime ministers. I've got one right here. And always remember, film the police.
That's it. Let the people decide.
That's right.
It's great to see you're endorsing the United Australia Party with your tie today.
I'm a Liberal Democrat. I'll put that on the record. But I do like some of the UAP guys, and I have very close relationships with some of the Reignite Democracy campaigners down in Victoria.
Which is now
They're
UAP.
beautiful people.
Do you
who are
know
also now
Timothy
UAP.
Andrews?
Don't know Timothy Andrews.
He's an LDP activist. No, LDP, look, I endorse the
Wait,
LDP.
Tim Andrews.
Tim
yeah, no,
Andrews,
yeah,
Tim
Tim
Andrews.
Andrews.
Everyone
No one
knows
uses
Tim Andrews.
Yeah, Tim Andrews. I met him once or twice at the Friedman Conference. I know him.
Is he in the US now?
He's in the US
That's
now.
what I
Yes,
thought, yeah.
yes. We needed him back here at this point in time.
Well, borders only just opened.
You know,
That's right.
Timothy Andrews is a Russian Cossack.
I do know that. My background
Family
is
friend.
Azerbaijan.
Ah, there you
Yeah,
go.
yeah, yeah. So I've got to get one of the hats as well.
Russian Empire, Soviet
That's right.
Union. Everywhere you turn, there's a Russian. You got
There's somewhere, yeah. they're all
Armenian,
mixed.
Berjiklian, Palashuk, she's Ukrainian. It's an outrage. What's happening?
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, even my Azeri heritage, I can express. And I wasn't opposed to her simply because she's an Armenian. I must put that on the record. I must say that the way that we've been treated in New South Wales for the past 12 months, the past 20 months, is terrible. We've been treated poorly. It's not becoming of a democratic or a liberal nation to be treated the way that we've been treated.
President. I appreciate it.
There you go.
Thank you, Mr. President.
You were mentioning the Soviet Union, and it was just an hour ago. I was finishing up
Sorry.
I was finishing up another protest.
Thanks for the advice.
Well, can I say, because this actually goes to my family history. My family are Azerbaijanis that fled into Iran due to the imperialist invasion of Azerbaijan in the 1920s by Vladimir Lenin. And they fled communism because communism was acting the same imperialist sort of policies that the rest of the colonial powers were trying to do. They were invaded for the sake of securing the Azeri oil fields. And that was why my family fled into Iran. And they've stayed in Iran basically since then, until obviously my father moved to this country. But the reality is, the left-wing politics, communism, we've seen the experiments done all over the world. It hasn't worked out. It's been catastrophic everywhere it's been tried. The authoritarianism predominantly is what kills it, and the reality is that we need to avoid as much as possible the creeping authoritarianism that is coming up in our society. We need to return to classical liberal values. We need to return to constitutional government. We need to return to limited government, and constitutionally limited government in particular.
There's plenty of opposition that says that there's nothing more important than safety,
Sure.
and whatever the cost of safety, because you can't enjoy liberty if you're dead. The dead can't enjoy liberty. How do you try and bridge the gap between the two?
Well, there's a question of proportionality in all of these things, Chris. The question of proportionality, it has to be risk versus reward.
Yep.
The reward, I think, was pretty clear from the beginning. There wasn't very much reward for the lockdowns and for the draconian policies that we took. You created a great deal of social upheaval. You created a great deal of opposition to the institutions, not to particular political parties, the institutions themselves. And on top of that, destabilization ultimately creates a more unsafe environment for the entire society. Impoverishing an entire society makes everything more unsafe. The policies were not proportionate from the beginning for the risk that we were trying to address.
But this is people's opinions, not policies. People's opinions are that better safe than free and dead.
I will.
And that's the view of many on the social left. The protest that I just came from here, the climate change protest, was not just COVID safe, but very much pro-vax. They had pro-vax signs, and they didn't want to be protesting here until there were 0 cases in Sydney.
Wow, okay.
Yes, this is the lockdown to zero movement. Who wants?
Lockdown to zero.
There's a pro-lockdown movement, and they hold protests. And I was at one last week.
It's pretty amazing. I think the only thing I can say is that anyone with an understanding of economics and an understanding of history will see that the nations which give up essential liberty for safety end up with neither. Now, obviously, as a question of opinion, democratic society, and this is why we're arguing this in the courts and we're fighting for it, we believe that everyone should have the right to express their opinions. If these people don't want to protest until they're down to 0 cases, they can protest when we're down to 0 cases. I don't have any issue with that.
Coming back to your filing, which you were mentioning.
Yes, sure, yeah.
I just want to come. We mentioned it earlier with Manny, but I want to hear it again from you. Tell us about that filing.
Sure. Should we angle? Essentially, the position that we're taking is a rather conservative legal one. We're going to be making the argument in the Supreme Court that, first of all, the Public Health Orders and the Public Health Act have never expressly prohibited protest in New South Wales. There's been never any express mention of the subject. The second point that we're making is, therefore, because it's never been expressly mentioned, it should be treated as if it's never been prohibited. So without the express language being utilised, the law should presume that those freedoms have never been jeopardised, never been attacked. In the alternative, if they have been attacked, and if the court gives it that rationale, our argument is that it's unconstitutional for them to do so. It's unconstitutional for the lawmaker to create laws which are essentially burdening the ability for people in a democratic society to come out and to voice their dissenting opinions or voice their pro-government opinions as well. That's the other side of things too. You have people that might want to come out and protest for the government or for the lockdowns, like these, get it down to 0 people. The reality is the entire society has to have a certain level of political freedom in order for that debate to happen and in order for the democracy to be sustained. If you go into the situation where no one can voice their opinions in public, you can only voice your opinions on public social media, essentially, you're putting all of that onto the social media to not censor the speech of certain particular people or certain ideologies. Ultimately, what ends up happening is you're giving the democratic rights over to these private entities to determine whether or not the speech is kosher or not. We say that that's not correct. If you want to be able to go into the public space, you should be able to go into the public space and have your voice heard.
Facing a new technology that social media is, like the Gutenberg press, Martin Luther, we may look back and say that his thesis that spread through the printing press was a glorious and wonderful revolution, but it was followed by 100 years of bloody conflict, as not just Martin Luther's thesis spread by press, but also vast amounts of mis- and disinformation spread on paper, and that could be replicated and spread from county to county, country to country, and led to grievous religious wars. We plausibly face another period of conflict using social media, where mis- and disinformation spreads quicker than truth.
That's right.
And many advocate for a control, a slowdown, that we can verify facts before they're spread. And that can include protests that may be for causes that are not true or false or incorrect or misleading. And in a time of pandemic may lead to, a protest could lead to someone leading to their death around a deadly contagious virus that they may cause someone they love to. Isn't there room with this new technology, rather than in a time of such rapid technological change, to slow down some of the tools and control some of the messaging to make sure that it's safe first.
Sure.
And we need to adapt to that change and adapt our laws and liberties.
Sure.
Isn't this the time to do that?
That's one way of looking at it, but the alternative is, by doing that, you're also suppressing an entire opposition side of the argument, which exists. There is an alternative position which does exist, which does have thousands of people that subscribe to it, and ultimately they don't see there is any danger to their safety. So by preferencing one over the other, you might see, and many people would say that you are being safe, but in reality you may very well not be. History may not vindicate that. The one thing that you did do is you set a precedent that the government can come in and it can restrict and it can moderate and it can actually completely devoid entire public spaces of any sort of debate or communication on political subjects. That's something which we say shouldn't be done. The best way to essentially clear up bad ideas or to clear up falsities is to have a nice open space where people are able to ventilate those ideas and shed light on any of those very, very poor or unscientific positions.
See you guys.
And that's exactly why.
There's more important things than safety.
That's right.
I say it all the time as well.
No, there are. Well, that's the truth. I'm trying to be very liberal about it, but the truth is, a society which is concerned only with safety will not have essentially any freedom in that society. And it doesn't work like that.
Just as Manny just said, as a standard greeting is to stay safe, I'm told that at protests all the time, because the safest thing to do at a protest is not be there.
Well,
don't be at a protest.
And can I say, I've never actually, I never attend protests, but I'm fighting for the right to protest in the Supreme Court, and I'm going to be fighting for it in any appeals court that I end up in. I don't actually think that protests usually accomplish very much. But at the end of the day, that doesn't change the fact that people have the right to go outside and to express their opinion and to protest. That's a right which has to be preserved in the democratic countries that we're in.
The alternative to protests are worse.
Oh, the alternatives are far worse. Wherever a government prevents peaceful protests, they create, or peaceful opposition generally, which is what we've seen in the past 20 months has occurred, they create an environment where violent opposition is something which is only a matter of time.
And misinformation.
And misinformation
it
as well.
itself, yeah.
You see the number of conspiracy theories that have gone around in the past 20 months, just because people haven't been able to go outside and actually have their voices heard. The conspiracy theories that this is, some new world order or something like that has gone very thick. And the reality is, it would have been dispelled. We could have dealt with these sorts of narratives in a very productive way, and as a society have a discussion of our ongoing values if we were able to have those protests and people were able to express their opinions. Whenever you have the opposition opinion as the ruling position, you end up getting Gestapo-style policing, where the police are coming around and checking CCTV footage to see whether or not they attended this protest or that protest.
That said, the Gestapo policed during a time of rapid industrial growth and improvement of conditions. And we can look at China with a similar state, which has brought 1 billion people out of poverty. For many who wear the CCP shirts, and I come across them often, and agree with the line that I give them that Stalin did nothing wrong. It's funny. No, it's serious.
I know it's serious.
It is believed.
It is serious.
Diane Abbott, the Shadow Home Secretary in the UK, has publicly, not just on record, but repeated a few times, that Mao did more good than harm.
No, that's just a nonsense. I'm not sure who she is.
Shadow Home Labour front bench.
Oh,
so, this isn't just some backbencher or just some man on the
It goes
street.
to my earlier point that you should be electing people that reflect the values of society rather than particular.
She does.
Well,
she does.
I would question how many people in just the ordinary suburbs of any, for example, Western Sydney or even East London or whatever it might be would actually reflect that opinion that Mao did more good than evil. With tens of millions of people.
Student protests. It's common.
I'm sure. Yeah.
And at today's protest as well, we had the Australian Communist Party and Socialist Alliance and Socialist Equality Party, and while at 300, 400, there was a turnout, and it's broadly a pro-socialist movement.
Sure.
There is.
And that's the thing, I would fight for their right to have that opinion, and I think that's perfect. I just think it's misguided in my own opinion. And it's just a matter of ideas. People can decide whether they believe that my ideas are correct, or people like my ideas are correct, or whether the socialist ideas are correct. I think history stands on its own as evidence for what creates a better society. But that's for people to decide, ultimately. The position that we're taking...
Can I walk a talk? Because I'm going to start listening or kind of shoulder surfing.
The position that we're taking in the
Aussie
course
Cossack
is essentially that we are we are able to have these sorts of debates in a public square, and that we're able to resolve these differences in a public square. And it should be able, rather than just when an election is around, people should be able to actually voice those opinions and have their members of parliament hear their voice in whatever peaceful capacity that they'd like to do it. And with that said, I'll let you go and jump on the Cossack, because I know that's the A+ story. But thank you everyone and thank you Chris for giving me the time, and keep your eyes on the Supreme Court. Thank you to everyone also who's been giving money to the Fight the Fines campaign that's kept us going and has helped us fight for justice. And thank you to everyone who's going out there and protesting and who's having their voice heard, even though I might not join you for my own reasons.
Oh, that's incitement, don't say.
But thank you to all the people that have been having their voice heard. I haven't encouraged anyone to protest. I'm saying thank you to the people who have already gotten fines for expressing their democratic feelings. Thank you, Chris, for being brave and attending all of them.
Thanks, man. Thanks for the credit.
Thank you.
Talk to you. It was lovely. It was absolutely lovely.
Stop you anytime, search you anytime.
So we're just going to listen to
vessel,
him on.
aircraft, vehicle, search any house, any place. So when I was in Bunnings getting searched, what they should have done is search the whole of Bunnings. And I called them up on that, but they didn't do that. Now, it's a politically motivated attack. Right?
But it's essentially, so people understand, they don't need a warrant anymore. That is, to avoid a warrant, they can search your house, your car, anything, anywhere, anytime. They can stop and search you and whatever you're in, based on that order. Do you have firearms?
No, I've never held a firearms license in Australia or any firearms. I can confirm that in Russia, where I studied for 3 years, I've travelled to quite often. It's, Kalashnikovs in Russia are like meat pies in Australia. People use them for ceremonial purposes and weddings and funerals and opening monuments.
Okay, if you're going to start talking about things you did overseas while it's legal overseas, then I'm going to be in trouble. I served in the Israeli army. I used to walk around with an M4.
There you go. You were a sniper.
Marksman. I will, but I'm not getting a firearms prohibition order put on me. They can't use that as an excuse. In Australia, you have never held a firearm. You've never been charged or caught with illegal firearms. Nothing like that.
Never been charged or caught with illegal firearms in Australia, unlike David Elliott, police minister, who uses submachine guns illegally. And David Elliott, you have to resign. The people are looking at you in disgrace. One rule for the politicians, another rule for the people. So this firearm prohibition order is completely outrageous. We've actually appealed it, and we hope to get it lifted. But at the same time, I don't mind having it. You know why? Because every time the police see me, now they have to search me. I'm going to show you the boot of my car, and you're going to realise when I open the boot of the car, the biggest surprise awaits the cops. And this is the reason why they haven't touched me for about a month now, because they know it's a setup.
Well, they also know you get too many views every time they touch you.
But people love it. People love watching it. People love watching these sergeants going through my ashtray and looking into my stuff and looking for Kalashnikovs in the glove box.
I don't know if it's the police doing it or it's your commentary along the way, which is quite entertaining.
Well, look, I try to make it entertaining because it demoralises the police. When the police realise that Aussie Cossack...
Just admit you're a funny man. Just say it. Look down the barrel of that camera.
Not as funny as Avi Yemeni, I admit it.
Facts are facts. Brother, I love you. Well, I don't know you. I don't actually know you. I'm not endorsing any of his behaviour. I'm just going to say, like, subscribe, it's good fun. Let's go look at it.
Let's check out the car.
Let's check out the car. Let's see the Aussie Cossack, how he rolled. Literally how he rolled here in Sydney.
Let's go check it out. Are you leaving? Because I do want to talk to you. If you hang around, I'm going to talk to you when we come back.
Yeah, I was actually leaving.
Go.
Yeah, all good.
Renee Aljagoody. Hello, good to see you again.
Good to see you,
We've seen each lost
yeah,
brother
thank
protest.
you. See
Got to
you.
chase the story.
Sorry?
Got to chase the
Yeah.
ambulance
You're
chase.
okay.
He's doing the shuffle. Look at the steady cam. Don't laugh. It shakes it. Come on. That's it. Keeping the elbows. It's all in the elbows. People say it's in the hips. They're just the elbows.
Have you seen this car before? No, you haven't seen it? Well, show us the back. You promise us.
Do you know who that is? Oh, you don't know who Avi Yemeni is? Okay. Jeez.
they don't stop me. This is why the police refuse to stop me. Don't be shy. Check it out. So this is now viewers.
We're gonna do a search.
If you do a search, right, this is what's waiting for the cops. So plenty of warning, surveillance. We've got ample metal boxes with padlocks, and we've got safes here, electronic safes. They're going to have to guess the combinations. We've got. So this is what waits the police, and this is why the police don't want to stop me anymore, because they know it's a full setup. It's a trap. We've got the car rigged with hidden cameras, and I just can't wait for some constable, overzealous, wanting to become a senior constable, see this car, pull it over. And what is he going to do with this? What's going to happen is I'm going to throw him a bunch of keys, about 300 keys, and say, knock yourself out, figure it out. What's in the box is the question.
What's in the box?
What's in the box? Well, have you ever heard of those?
We won't tell the cops.
I'll give you a hint. Have you heard of a matryoshka? It's a Russian doll. You get a big doll, a little doll, a little doll, something like that. But tune in, it's going to be hilarious. But now they don't want to stop me. I've actually got a suspicion that they are going to withdraw this FPO because they realise by having an FPO, they've basically guaranteed that the Aussie Cossack channel will have content for the next 80 years, if I should live that long, God willing. So I'm going to pass it on to my kids and they get an FPO on them. It's just like a perpetual ticket for content. So they have stopped stopping me. I don't know, should we get rid of it, should we not get rid of it? We'll wait and see what they say.
Listen, one thing I don't know whether they're going to withdraw it or not withdraw it. It's outrageous that they even put it over that laughing about all these things are outrageous.
Fucking hilarious. Fucking hilarious.
Retract that comment. According to Avi Yemeni, he gets more than friendly.
That's
Geordie.
defamation.
Well, friendly Geordie's handing out money for defamation. So fuck the luck. He just gave 100,000 to John Barilaro.
And he claimed to win. I just found that because I just went through defamation as well. We settled where we didn't take down the videos, we didn't apologise, and we didn't pay a cent of court costs. I was getting sued by a gangland lawyer, and friendly Geordies is celebrating a win. It cost him 100 grand, but he did raise him over $1 million. So,
Not a bad deal.
Not a bad
1.2 million change. Well, speaking of defamation, Australia is the best country. Highest wage case is Channel 10, Daily Mail, Daily Telegraph. Although I can't disclose the results of the cases, well, the instructions on my legal team are saying very pleasing results, very happy with what happened. That's actually the origin of it.
so let me ask you, because you've got a construction company or something, right?
Like,
This is fun.
I love it. True Blue Labour owns the company, give me a free ad. If you're looking for good labourers and construction workers,
True Blue Russian.
True Blue Labour, very misleading. Look at this laughing. Hey, why can't a Russian be True Blue?
No, 100%. We are the most True Blue people in Sydney, right?
I was born in Auburn Hospital, which technically went to the Middle East. That's another story.
All right, brother. Keep doing what you're doing. We'll be in touch. I'm sure our paths will cross again. Stay out of trouble, or if you choose to, stay in it. Either way, keep that content coming, brother.
Mate, it's a pleasure. And a lot of our real commentators, that we say, you've got to be hard, you've got to do it.
Let's get a photo now. I'm going to get a photo and we'll chuck it on Insta and drive the country nuts.
Oh, we'll do it in the safes in the back. There we go. It's very good.
We'll put that on. Are you on Instagram? Aussie Cossack.
Simeon and Boyko. But at Aussie Cossack, you can
Is it on Instagram at Aussie Cossack?
Guys, what do you want me to ask Avi Yemeni or Aussie Cossack? They're winding up their interviews here, so I might get a chance to ask some things. Why is it so hilarious? I think it's pretty hilarious when the target of that pulls out this box of safes, keys, and whatever. Doesn't make what he's doing right. I do think it's funny though.
I've got to do my last piece in front. 20 seconds. Yeah, come on.
What, the guy he's interviewing is a bit of a wanker? Yeah, they're both a bit of wankers. But if I can say, if you're going to be a social media celebrity, and these two both made it big, you're either a yob or a wanker. That's just how it is. You come to me for honesty, it's honesty. Wankers. That doesn't make them wrong, evil. There's more to life than just being wankers. That said, of the both of them, if you're looking for more moral judgments around it, they've built the audience. People want to see what they have to say and what they publish for them, and that's more justice than anything else. So.
This is a video about him.
Jeez, is he getting the red ensign now?
Aussie Cossack. I'll get him up close to the policeman.
Here comes the red ensign. For those who don't know,
Alright, slow-mo walking this way towards you.
here's these three. We're just watching the two stars doing their thing, and neither of us are as big stars as either of them, so we're just kind of watching them. Oh yeah, there's more life of being a wanker. So what if you're a wanker? Eureka. So we got the red ensign, we got the Eureka. Jeez, this is going to be a good... Ooh, look at this one. This will be a... Ooh. Yep. That is a gorgeous shot. It's the right day for the wind of it. You've got the courts behind you. It'll look better at 120p. Oh, that's sexy. Some people call them grifters, some people stars. Look, that tends to be a decision of popular opinion.
That's it. Right. You're gonna chuck those there. I'll go do my last piece from here, and we'll come to the car.
Red ensign, mate. That is not too many know the story about the red ensign.
Bit of propaganda there.
Oh, beautiful.
See the full story on Rebel News.
Rebel News. Oh, it will be on your channel, won't it?
Well, potentially.
Why would it be? It's got to be on your channel.
I'm not filming. You're filming.
Well, that's true. I am filming. I'm only putting it on Facebook. Tell us about the red ensign.
Red ensign is the real flag of Australia. It's what the Anzacs fought under.
Why is it the real flag?
Well, so there was the blue flag is the flag of the government.
Yep.
So we love the Australian flag.
Yes.
But in times like this, we want to remind everyone.
No. Are you live streaming?
I am.
Can you...
Give you some space?
Well, I'm coming to the car, but I don't want anyone seeing.
You're coming to the car? Yeah, I'll get out of the way of the car. Sure. When you're trying to do shots like this, you don't always want things in the middle of it. I don't know if he's coming to the car or not, so you want to help them get the shots that they want to. I'll keep you for a minute longer. He's going to do a walk and talk to the car, and I think he's going to walk up to the car. You were telling me about the red ensign.
Yeah.
Anzacs died under. Yeah, sure. I didn't know that you could mount flags outside your car. That's not bad. So what Avi's going to do, he's going to come around the corner, and you're going to get this nice panning shot as the Avi walks around the corner. You'll have your cameraman before it, and then Avi's going to get the long shot from the corner to the car, and that'll be like the discovery, and that'll be a surprise. And then Avi will walk up to Simeon and be like, "Hey, happy to see you here," and that'll be the kind of the meeting moment that gets cut together. Jeez, that looks glamorous, doesn't it? That looks lovely. I didn't know you could do this with your car. I didn't know you could fly flags outside your car. I hope Chris makes it to the Wanker Club. Oh, thank you. It's true. Guys, literally anyone who is famous, you end up in that same kind of thing. And partially that's just a byproduct of being such part of such a large group in that way. Facing thousands of comments as Simeon and Avi do changes you. And to try and keep a level head in that way, it's hard. It's really hard to keep a level head around it. Fame changes people. And I'm not the first to observe this. Anyone who doesn't see it anyway, you want to talk to me? I'm happy to talk to you.
What is that?
Yeah, I'm happy to talk to you anytime.
I've got to run.
Oh, good.
At what point did you start the live streaming?
A while ago.
Like down there when you were walking?
No. After that, when we got up here, when I started to speak with Manny, is when I started it. But
yeah.
I'd love a moment of your time before
I've got to
go.
What have we got? A quick.
Avi, do that and then come back to me.
I've got to leave.
Walk and talk. Let's go.
Wait, hold on. What we want to put that in the MacBook? In there now. I'm not going to put that on.
About $350. Yeah, I know this. Part of my coverage is also the gear that happens around it. So while he was shuffling along on the Blackmagic 6K and the 17-55, part of what I do is the...
No dramas, bro, but just parts of this I don't really want on live stream, so can you just not be in the close? Yeah.
Jesus.
That's what I do. Long live stream.
That's the story, man.
Say again? Yeah, always.
Catch it.
All of it. Unedited. That's what I do.
That's why I always watch your channel.
Thank you, sir.
That's it.
I was hoping to chat with Avi for a bit. And he could have chatted with me just then. He could have chatted with me, just had like a 5-minute chat.
You're talking about me.
But he didn't want to have a quick chat with me.
Oh, I don't know, is he putting it to the end or what is he doing?
Look, when I
104.
was speaking with you, I asked challenging questions because that's the point of this, is not to just come here and be your fan.
Of course.
When I was speaking with Simeon, I've asked him difficult questions about why do you do what you do? That's hard. And
You're a gentleman.
oh my word, I knew it.
He's a gentleman.
This is what Boris Johnson did outside his place. He walked out and he said,
No Novichok in this bottle.
You're Russian, so this is vodka, isn't it?
Novichok.
I don't know.
You know what that is?
No.
Oh, that's good.
don't ask.
Don't know. No, well, if it's not vodka, I'm going to be disappointed.
Just a bit of hydration.
Avi didn't want to be on live. I wanted to ask him some questions.
Did he blow you off completely, or is it just for the time being?
It's...
Well, I think the problem is when there's a live stream, obviously it's picking up all private conversations.
Well,
Everybody
yeah.
wants private
I think
conversations.
it's you're giving a behind the scenes view of what happens.
I totally
Essentially
get
getting
that.
the records, yeah.
I don't like you. And I hope we do get to have a chat in a second, but
Hopefully so. He came all the way
he's-
up, may as well.
yeah, he's... So that's a pity. That's a
You're doing
bugger.
great today, mate.
Yeah.
All around town.
Carrying that around. Do you need... Tell me, you have a message for me.
Me?
Do you?
No.
Oh, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
cool.
Well,
I'm still...
I was gonna say I'm gonna go.
Oh, good. I'm still on.
Oh, okay. Am I on?
We're all still on. I'm still on. I'm still on means I'm on.
Well,
We're on.
I think it's over, so we're going to.
Yeah, all good.
There we go.
I'm going to see if I can... If Simeon's still here... I think he's had enough talking, but I might wind it up. Have you had enough talking? You had enough? You had enough, or can I...
Like a bulletproof vest.
You had enough. Have you had enough, or can I... You had enough.
What would you like to ask me?
That was probably another one of your fans. Have you tried reaching out to police and saying, "Hey, is there a way that we can change this?" And honestly, what do they want?
What do you want to change?
What do the police want you to change about what you're doing?
You sound like you want to change something. About it.
Well, I'm trying to find because they're clearly upset about something that you do.
There's nothing that should change. I'm enjoying this, and I'll enjoy suing them for harassment and intimidation and making millions of dollars
Well, there
to
you
fund
go.
the political campaign further. That's what's going to happen. They're so screwed in court. They are completely screwed. There's so much evidence, getting stopped 3 times a day, getting stopped 37 times in the space of 60 days. It's outrageous.
37 times in 60 days.
Approximately.
That's incredible.
Approximately.
Have a look yourself. Have a look at the channel, Aussie Cossack.
Yeah, Aussie Cossack. I'm going to wind this up, guys. I think Avi doesn't like me being live, so I might wind that up. See you, man. Thanks for
Good
your
job.
views.
Keep it up. Keep
All
up the great journalism. All the
Wherever I
best.
can.